They said it was over before it even began. Every time I tried, I was met with defeat. I stood for something greater, but the world wasn't ready to listen, at least not yet. Each failure felt like a closed door, each rejection like a personal attack. I was told I was wasting my time, that I should walk away, that it wasn't possible. There were days I questioned everything. Was I wrong? Was I chasing an illusion? The silence after a loss is deafening. You look around and there's no applause, no encouragement, only doubt echoing in your mind. But here's what I learned. Setbacks are not the end, they are a test, a challenge, a moment where life asks you, how badly do you want this? Every defeat I suffered pushed me to reflect deeper, think sharper, and build stronger. I realized that failure is never final unless you decide it is. And I decided time and time again that I wasn't going to let it define me. I started to see setbacks differently. They weren't roadblocks, they were redirections. They taught me what didn't work so I could find what would. I learned patience the hard way. I learned perseverance in silence with no spotlight, no crowd cheering me on. And every time I got knocked down, I told myself, get up, just one more time. You see, the world celebrates success, but it rarely tells the full story. The nights you can't sleep, the mornings you wake up with a weight on your chest, the moments when you feel utterly alone in your fight. Those are the times when quitting looks tempting. Those are the moments that separate the ones who dream from the ones who deliver. And I had many of those moments, but I refused to accept failure as my ending. I refused to let the noise drown out my inner voice. I held on to that quiet conviction that if I stayed in the fight long enough, something would change. Not because I was special, not because I had everything figured out, but because I was willing to endure the pain of growth. I was willing to keep standing when everything around me said, sit down. Looking back, I realized that every rejection was preparing me. Every delay was sharpening me. Every time the world said no, it gave me the chance to say yes to myself. And in doing so, I built resilience, a kind of resilience that no shortcut can teach you. A kind of strength that only comes when you've walked through the fire and refused to be burned. The truth is, most people give up right before things start to shift. They walk away because the process hurts. They let go because it takes too long. But what if they just held on a little longer? What if the breakthrough was just around the corner? I think about that all the time. What if I had quit after my first failure or my 10th? What if I had let the critics be louder than my conviction? I would have missed everything. I would have never known what was possible on the other side of not giving up. The moment I refused to quit, everything began to change. People often think the hardest part of the journey is the struggle, the failures, the sleepless nights. But I'll tell you what's even harder, staying true to your vision when no one else believes in it. When you're walking down a road no one else sees, you'll be questioned, mocked, even laughed at. And the truth is, the world doesn't understand what it can't immediately measure or label. They want results now. They want success, fast. But real vision isn't about short-term applause. It's about long-term purpose. When I first started, almost everyone around me said it couldn't be done. They said I was wasting my time, that I didn't belong, that I should stay in my lane. And honestly, they had all the reasons lined up. On paper, they weren't wrong, but here's the thing. I wasn't chasing their version of success. I had a different picture in my mind. Something they couldn't see because it wasn't theirs to see. That vision was mine. It was rooted in something deeper, something personal, something that didn't need validation to be real. There were days when the criticism felt endless. There were people I respected who doubted me, people I thought would stand by me who walked away. In those moments, it's tempting to adjust your path just to win their approval, to soften your stance just to be accepted. But I knew if I started bending my vision for the sake of comfort, I'd lose the very reason I started in the first place. You can't lead if you're waiting for permission. You can't create something new if you're constantly trying to fit into someone else's idea of what's possible. Every great achievement in history started as someone's vision. Unseen, untested, and unpopular. What made it real wasn't the applause, it was the commitment, the belief, the refusal to trade authenticity for acceptance. There were times when it would have been so much easier to take a safer route, to say what people wanted to hear, to become what they expected. But I didn't want to just be accepted. I wanted to make a difference. And to do that, I had to stay focused, even when I was walking alone. When no one claps for you, when no one shows up to support you, and when the noise of doubt surrounds you, that's when your vision is truly tested. That's when you find out whether you're doing it for the spotlight or for the impact. And for me, the spotlight was never the goal. The goal was change. What I learned along the way is that people may doubt your choices, they may laugh at your dreams, but in time, they'll respect your consistency. They'll understand that while they were watching for signs of success, you were quietly building something unshakable. So no, I didn't chase validation. I chased the vision. And that made all the difference. There was never a shortage of criticism. From the very beginning, people were quick to judge, quick to label, quick to doubt. I heard it all. He's not serious. He's just playing a game. This isn't his world. And at first, yes, it hurt. When you give something your all and people still question your intent, it can shake you. It can make you wonder if maybe, just maybe, they're right. But I made a decision early on. I wasn't going to let their voices be louder than mine. If I had listened to the noise, I would have stopped before I even began. So instead, I turned it into fuel. Every insult, every sarcastic remark, every moment of public mockery, I took it all and stored it inside, not as anger, but as energy. I let their doubts sharpen my focus. I let their disbelief strengthen my resolve. You see, criticism is inevitable. The moment you step out of the comfort zone, the moment you dare to do something different, something bold, something meaningful, you will be criticized. People fear what they don't understand. They mock what challenges the status quo. It's easier to sit on the sidelines and throw stones than to step into the arena and build something. But I wasn't doing this to be liked. I wasn't in it for praise. I was in it for purpose. And once you align yourself with purpose, criticism loses its power. It no longer stings. It motivates. I began to see every word of doubt as a reflection of their limitations, not mine. I understood that the louder the opposition, the closer I was getting to something real. And let me tell you, the criticism didn't stop just because I kept going. If anything, it got louder. The more I stood firm, the more uncomfortable it made others. But instead of letting it wear me down, I let it build me up. I trained myself to extract value from every attack, not emotionally, but strategically. I'd ask myself, What can I learn from this? How do I become better, stronger, smarter? And with that mindset, even my critics became part of my progress. They pushed me without realizing it. Every time they told me I couldn't, it reminded me that I must. Every time they tried to drag me down, they made me more grounded in my mission. That kind of pressure, that kind of resistance, it builds character. It forces you to grow a spine when others expect you to bow. All the time something interesting happened. Some of the same people who doubted me, who dismissed me, started paying attention. They saw that I wasn't here for applause. I was here to stay. And slowly, their mockery turned to silence. Then silence turned to curiosity. And eventually, some of them began to understand. Not all, but enough. So no, I didn't run from criticism. I faced it head on. I used it. I let it remind me why I started. And every time they said I couldn't, I smiled. Because I knew I was getting closer. There's this idea people have that you wait for the perfect moment, the perfect conditions, the perfect support, and then you act. But if I had waited for all of that, I would still be waiting. The truth is, nothing in my journey began with perfect timing or ideal resources. Most of the time, it felt like I was building something with bare hands while others had machines. But I wasn't interested in excuses. I was committed to the mission. There were no guarantees, no safety nets, no powerful backers clearing the path ahead. What I had was belief, and that belief had to be enough. I remember standing at the start of something massive, something others said couldn't be done, and I just told myself, start with what you have, because if you wait for everything to fall into place, before you take action, you'll never move. Progress isn't born from comfort, it's born from conviction. So I built in the face of doubt. I built when it felt like no one else could see the need, when the vision was only clear to me. And yes, it was hard. There were moments of deep frustration where the obstacles felt endless, but I kept reminding myself, this isn't about convenience, this is about purpose. And purpose doesn't wait for permission. When things broke down, I rebuilt. When support disappeared, I found strength in the silence. And I realized something powerful. Resilience doesn't come from success. That's when you discover what you're truly capable of, building transformations daily. Daily. And that's when you discover what you're truly capable of. It was never about having more than others. It was about doing more with less. About showing up again and again, even when everything in the world told me to stop. And over time, brick by brick, moment by moment, what once looked impossible slowly became reality. Not because conditions changed, but because I refused to be limited by them. I didn't wait for the right time. I made the time right. There's a strange comfort in quitting when things get tough, when the results don't come, when the world starts whispering that you're not good enough. Walking away starts to feel like relief. I've been there. I've stood in the middle of failure, not once or twice, but over and over again. Defeat has a way of making you doubt your worth, not just your work. And every time I faced another loss, another setback, I had a choice. Walk away or stand up and keep going. Most people only see the surface, the wins, the moments that shine, but they don't see the years of struggle behind them. They don't see the times you show up knowing you might fail again. And yet, you still show up. That's what grit is. Not loud, not flashy, just the quiet decision to keep moving forward even when there's no guarantee of success. I lost more times than I can count, sometimes publicly, sometimes painfully. There were days when I stood alone, when even those closest to me questioned whether it was worth it. But I learned something in those moments that no success could ever teach me. How to endure, how to keep believing when there's no reason to, how to hold your ground when the world tells you to step aside. People talk about talent, about intelligence, about strategy, but let me tell you, none of that matters if you quit. The most gifted people in the world won't make it if they walk away when it gets hard. Grit matters more. It's what keeps you in the fight. It's what turns failure into a stepping stone rather than a dead end. Each time I fell, I got back up, not because I was certain of the outcome, but because I knew giving up would be the real defeat. I wasn't trying to be perfect, I was just trying to be persistent, because in the end, it wasn't my wins that defined me, it was the fact that I refused to disappear after the losses. So when people ask what made the difference, I tell them it wasn't talent, it was time. It wasn't brilliance, it was belief. It wasn't that I never failed, it was that I never stayed down. I didn't let failure write my story. Grit did. I have always believed that change starts with one person, not a crowd, not a committee, just one person who decides that enough is enough. One person who refuses to accept things the way they are. One person who chooses to stand, even if it means standing alone. I never saw myself as extraordinary. I didn't have all the answers. I didn't come from a place where success was guaranteed, but I had conviction. I had a vision. And more than anything, I had the courage to act on it, even when it felt like the whole world was pushing back. When I started, I wasn't trying to lead a movement. I was simply trying to speak the truth, to ask the hard questions, to challenge what had become normal even when it was wrong. And at first, almost no one listened. But I kept going, not because I thought I would change everything overnight, but because I believed that if I stayed consistent, something would shift, slowly, quietly. It wasn't about ambition, it was about responsibility. When you see something broken and you know you can help fix it, it becomes a duty. I couldn't just sit back and watch. I couldn't wait for someone else to rise. I had to do it, even if I had to do it scared, even if I had to do it alone. People underestimate what one person can do. They wait for others to act. They wait for the momentum, for the moment. But momentum is created. Moments are made. What starts with one voice can grow into something far bigger than anyone expected. Not because that one voice is louder, but because it refuses to be silenced. I've seen how determination spreads. When people see someone standing tall, it gives them the courage to stand too. When they see someone speak up, it gives them permission to find their own voice. What began as one person's resolve became a collective awakening. Not because I forced it, but because I lived it. And others saw that if I could endure, they could too. The most powerful thing you can do in life is stay true to your cause, relentlessly. Because real change never starts with mass support. It begins with the unwavering conviction of one person who won't let go, no matter how long it takes. I didn't set out to move a nation. I just refused to be moved off course. And in doing so, I learned something that changed my life. When one person refuses to quit, it gives everyone else permission to believe that they don't have to either. So when you look at the journey, the setbacks, the silence, the rejection, the long road that often felt like it led nowhere, understand this. It was never about how many times I fell. It was about how many times I chose to rise. I wasn't the strongest, the smartest, or the most favored. I was simply the one who refused to quit. And that single decision changed everything.